If the New Orleans Saints want to get the best they can get out of the quarterback position, using both Derek Carr and Taysom Hill is an absolute must. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, you can subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast so you never miss the latest episodes. And if you want to keep the conversation going, take part in our exclusive film studies, Q&As, early access, breaking news, and much more, you can become a Locked On Saints insider today by heading over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints to join a community I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I am your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the Media Saints News Network, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL podcast, and here with you every single Monday through Friday, and then some on Locked On Saints. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. On today's episode of Locked On Saints, it's our second Monday episode, our Monday evening episode. So we're taking a look at what we liked, what concerned us, from the win against the Chicago Bears. But first, we're going to kick things off with looking at Derek Carr and Taysom Hill. The New Orleans Saints are at their absolute best right now on offense when both of these guys go out there and serve their purpose, do what it is that they do well. Using Taysom Hill does not mean anything in terms of a negative viewpoint on Derek Carr, and utilizing Derek Carr does not create a negative viewpoint on the idea of the utilization of Taysom Hill. The New Orleans Saints are at their best, just like they were with Taysom Hill and Drew Brees towards the latter part of Drew Brees' career, when both of these guys were serving their purpose, when both of these guys were being used and asked to do what it is that makes them great. And that's what we have seen from both of these players over the course of the past two games. Derek Carr between the 20s, Taysom Hill within the 20s. It works. It works. And the New Orleans Saints, by all intents and purposes, intents and purposes, not intensive purposes, should continue to do this. This is the formula that the Saints should be using through the rest of the season and ideally into the playoffs. It ain't about anybody's feelings. It ain't about, oh, well, they shouldn't take Derek Carr off the field to put Taysom Hill in. Forget all that. Forget all that. This is where this team has found out how it can be the team that it said it wants to be. Derek Carr was outstanding in Sunday's game. No turnovers, no turnover-worthy throws in between the 20s. He orchestrated extremely well on third downs. PFF put out earlier today how well Derek Carr played on third downs. He was 9 of 13 against the Bears, 82 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 125.6 passer rating. Those are really good numbers, especially that 125 passer rating. But 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on those third downs. And that's a part of what you're looking for, right? I tweeted out after the first Paulson Adebo interception, points off turnovers, touchdown was in the red zone, and it was a third down pass in the red zone. Boom. Situational football. That's where you want to see the New Orleans Saints getting this thing done. Then, after Derek Carr throws the touchdown pass in the red zone to Chris Olave, Michael Thomas up over on the opposite side, taking up a double team in the red zone. Then you go to the other ones. Derek Carr hits Taysom Hill in the red zone. Taysom Hill able to orchestrate some of these drives in the red zone. Throws a touchdown pass in the red zone. All of it. That's what you want to see from this New Orleans Saints team. That's it. You want to see them be able to finish in the red zone. And that's where Taysom Hill has been outstanding. Last week, we talked about how the Saints ran 11 different plays, and on 10 of those plays, it was either Alvin Kamara or Taysom Hill in the red zone. That did not change in this game. You saw a little bit more Derek Carr passing because you got to mix some new things in, all that. But utilizing Taysom Hill in the red zone has opened up what this Saints team can do in scoring position. Dennis Allen today was asked, do you think that what do you think you've learned in terms of increasing, the red zone efficiency? right? This is a team that went 3 of 4 against the Indianapolis Colts, plus a 20-yard run by Taysom Hill. You had 3 of 4 again this past week, Taysom Hill catching a touchdown and throwing a touchdown. You want to know what it is that the Saints figured out? Well, they run the ball effectively in the red zone is what Dennis Allen said. You know why they run the ball effectively in the red zone? Because they're putting the ball in the hands of Taysom Hill. And they're putting the ball in the hands of Alvin Kamara in that area. It works. This is what works. And this is what the New Orleans Saints should be doing. This should be their formula. I said it last week. It doesn't matter if you do it every week. No, you can't. You can't just keep using Taysom Hill in the red zone. Blah, blah. Why? Why? Who has proven that they can stop it? The New Orleans Saints have done this against the number 1 defense in yards per carry, the Chicago Bears, and they've done it against a top 10 defense in terms of rushing yards against the Indianapolis Colts. If they can't stop them, two teams that have been hyper productive very well, very, very well against the run, have done very well against the run. If they can't stop what Taysom Hill is going to do in the red zone, why stop? Why not do it, right? So that's what I love about what we're seeing from this New Orleans Saints team right now is that we're seeing them figure it out. And we're watching the egos go to the side. Michael Thomas, after a game, the first game in his career when he did not catch a single pass while active during the regular season. There was one playoff game, but during the regular season, first time ever. What does he say at the end of the game? It's all about winning. Gives a speech in the locker room, bringing everybody together, family on 3. The egos don't matter. Individually, the players themselves are setting their egos aside. Derek Carr, Taysom Hill, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, all of them. And Jamal Williams played a spectacular role in the red zone, even though he wasn't asked to run the ball. He was the pass protector. You look at the play that I'm calling, I'm basically just going to call any type of play fake that includes faking a run with Taysom Hill, a Tay fake now, moving forward, just to prepare you for that. But they ran the Tay fake with Colin Saunders running the route out to the right side. He draws 2 defenders on the route. That ends up getting Juwan Johnson open in the end zone on the 3rd read, by the way, by Taysom Hill. But all of it happens because Jamal Williams gets the block on the extra player that's coming right there for Taysom Hill. Jamal Williams gets that block, that pass goes. Jamal Williams doesn't get that block, it's probably a sack. Huge. Huge. This is the formula for winning for the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr within the 20s and a lot of Taysom Hill inside the 20s. We'll see if the New Orleans Saints stick with it. This was an issue for them last year. They found what worked and they didn't stick with it. Will they change course this year? They get a massive opportunity here against the Minnesota Vikings next week. Coming up next, what did we like about the win against the Chicago Bears? We've also got some injury updates for you and what to expect for starting quarterback and Justin Jefferson with the Minnesota Vikings. Got all that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Every time that you're hiring, it can feel like a high-stakes wager for your job. So equipping yourself with the most information possible is absolutely the best way to go. That's why we love LinkedIn Jobs. You can set up things like screening questions, hiring tools, stuff like that, so that you can get the information about these candidates before you even ask them to come in for an interview. Learn that they have the requisite experience, that they're a good culture fit for you, whatever information it is that you're looking for before you invite someone in for an interview, you can get by using LinkedIn Jobs. It's one of the many reasons that small businesses have voted LinkedIn Jobs number 1 when it comes to delivering quality hires versus some of those leading candidates out there. Or competitors out there. So go and check it out. LinkedIn Jobs are going to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. What we liked from the New Orleans Saints in their victory against the Chicago Bears. First thing we're going to be taking a look at is not just Paulson Adebo's outstanding performance, but what about Marshon Lattimore, the guy opposite him? We got that coming up for you here today. Appreciate you, as always, all of you everydayers making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day, every day. So a lot was made from Paulson Adebo's fantastic game. He and Marshon Lattimore go out there. They lead the Who Dat chant before the game. And then Paulson Adebo goes out there, forces 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, both of which actually on really good discipline. But the first interception in particular, a phenomenal read by Paulson Adebo, collapsing in on Cole Kmet, just watching the eyes of Taysom Bagent jumping the route, getting the interception there. Then also forced the fumble later on as well, recovered the fumble himself. He just had a DB's dream of a game, and his game was absolutely outstanding. So obviously we like that performance. But what about the guy opposite him? Marshon Lattimore. Notice how you didn't hear his name really at all throughout this game? Well, it's because he was targeted one time. One time. And I had to go back through film and really comb through and find it. There's one play that maybe you can say that he was responsible for, the 33 or 38 yard, I think it was, catch and run by Darnell Mooney. It was a play to where Marshon Lattimore was on the right side of the field. He comes down, tries to play the play action, tries to play the run there. And then Darnell Mooney kind of ekes out on a split zone release, which means that he's running laterally behind the line of scrimmage after the snap, and then kind of ekes out over to that left side. DeMario points to him. Marshon turns around. They try to make the stop. Darnell Mooney picks up like 39 yards after the catch, 38 yards total. But outside of that play, one catch for 9 yards. One catch for 9 yards. Targeted one time in this game. Once. Uno. Single. Solo. Lone target. You wonder why Paulson Adebo got the opportunity to get so many takeaways in this game? It's because Marshon Lattimore kept forcing Taysom Bagent to just be like, not there. Not throwing over there. No, 23. Not happening. Right? Like, this is the kind of game that Marshon Lattimore has. And Paulson Adebo kind of referenced this in his post-game presser. He said, I might have a game where I play a fantastic game, but I get no interceptions and I have no stats to show for it. That's the kind of game that Marshon Lattimore just had, where he played a phenomenal game and has nothing to show for it. Why? Because he played a phenomenal game, continuously forcing Taysom Bagent to push through progressions, all those other things. Now, a lot of the time where you saw that good coverage downfield, it kind of gets erased because the defensive line was out of structure in their pass rush, and therefore Taysom Bagent was able to escape and go and pick up a bunch of yardage on the ground and stuff like that. So you see the run, you don't see the coverage rep that Marshon Lattimore just had. You know what I mean? So it's tough, right? It's a balance between all of that. But looking at Marshon Lattimore's game, he was equally outstanding, but in a different way. And it led to opportunities for Paulson Adebo to jump routes, an opportunity for Marcus Maye to make what was one of the best interceptions you're going to see. One of the best interceptions you're going to see. The range and amount of field that he had to cover to collapse and get that interception was outstanding. That's what Marcus Maye does. That's the thing when it comes to Marcus Maye. And one of the reasons why they liked him in place of Marcus Williams, because you get Marcus Williams, you get the range, but you get the tackling ability as well. So you like what you see from both those guys. But a lot of that, just like we talked about Michael Thomas, and this is another thing that we liked from this game, Michael Thomas was getting open, but some of the routes weren't seen and things like that, right? The progression was started on the opposite side of the field. First read was open, as opposed to Mike might have been the third, piece in that progression or whatever. Much like Michael Thomas didn't benefit himself from the moments that we always talk about, he helped to create moments for others. You could say the same thing about Marshon Lattimore over on the defensive side. First of all, he didn't give up moments to opposing wideouts, but he also, because of forcing Taysom Bagent to move through his progressions, might have forced other opportunities and moments for other players, helped to create those by making him move on. So that's the type of game that Marshon Lattimore had. You absolutely love it. The other thing that I actually really like from this team was their ability to respond starting at around on the defensive side, starting at around the 5-minute mark left in the third quarter. The defense completely locked down towards the end of the game, completely, and everything. But we're not going to talk about that because of the slow start. And the slow start is a real concern and something we're going to get to when it comes to what concerned us about this game. But I love the way that the defense just got it together, started executing all those other things. Over on the offensive side of the football, you like the protection, and I like Andrus Peat at left tackle. That's another thing that I really like. Andrus Peat all of a sudden a revelation at left tackle. Like, you makes you wonder if maybe he should have been playing left tackle when he was drafted instead of being moved to left guard, right? Like, that was the position that he played. He played tackle in college at Stanford. And then what did the Saints do? They moved him. They changed his position to left guard. How much different might we have been talking about Andrus Peat for all these years if he was playing like this as a left tackle arguably one of the most important positions in football. Maybe the second most important position on the offensive line. To many people, the most important position on the offensive line. I think center's up there, right? Center and left tackle. But man, like, what? I asked Dennis Allen about it and everything, and like how he liked seeing, what he likes about Andrus Peat there, and it just seems he's a natural fit there all of a sudden. The Saints moved him out there. Now he gave up 10 pressures against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but then second week there, got a lot better. This week, got a lot better. We watched the Saints give up no sacks in this game. No penalties on the offensive line. They had one false start, and it was Juwan Johnson. Not to single Juwan Johnson out or call out Juwan Johnson, but it wasn't on the offensive line. You know what I mean? So even with all the shuffling there, it worked. It worked. I wouldn't be surprised to see Andrus Peat hold on to that left tackle spot. Like, there's no reason to rush Trevor Penning back. Maybe you revisit it after the bye week and kind of see what's there. But hey, if you can give, Trevor Penning some more time and Andrus Peat's working out and not hurt, sure. Give it to him. And then he gets to hit the free agency market, maybe make some left tackle money somewhere. Awesome. Then you've got your next left tackle, and maybe you draft another one for some competition at that point. But love it. Love what we saw, or what we've seen, rather, from Andrus Peat over at left tackle. Final thing that I want to mention is that I just like what we've seen from the New Orleans Saints when it comes to situational football. It's working. It's working on third downs all of a sudden. It's working in the red zone. The ability to run the ball has been fantastic. Their ability to get into those third and short situations has been good. The fact that they stopped taking all these downfield shots on third and short, although they did it to begin the game, like early on in this game. These are all things that you like to see and that you needed to see from this New Orleans Saints offense. I was asked earlier, I did AFR with Matt Moscona, a good buddy, and he asked, has the New Orleans Saints offense turned a corner? And I'll tell you the same thing I told him. I think that they're in process of turning the corner. They're going into the turn, but they still got to accelerate out. They're not done yet, right? It was never about the Indianapolis Colts game or the Chicago Bears game or the Minnesota Vikings game. For me, it's always been about the Indianapolis Colts game and the Chicago Bears game and the Minnesota Vikings game. Can you consistently put together an offensive performance worth its weight? And so far, 2 weeks in a row, they've done it. The issues have been slow start, not being able to score on opening possessions. No opening possession touchdowns. We still haven't seen. And then in this game against the Chicago Bears, kind of puttering out towards the end. But you're also considering a pair of drives at the end where they weren't necessarily trying to score. They were just trying to run the clock out. Although the 4th and 1 sneak that didn't work with Derek Carr, I did ask Dennis Allen about it. He said that one of the things that they really want to do was get up to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball quickly, but because the official was standing over the ball, kind of held the ball, they weren't able to do that. The reason why they didn't use Taysom Hill in that situation is because Taysom Hill doesn't really have much experience under center. They tried it last year, fumbled the exchange. Don't want to do that. So they went in, they tried it with Derek Carr. I asked, did you have the opportunity to call a timeout? Dennis Allen basically told me I had an opportunity. Yeah, we could have called a timeout if we wanted to, which means they didn't want to call a timeout. That's what they wanted to try, and it didn't work. And I don't blame them for trusting the offensive line to go out there and get you a half a yard, and it just didn't happen. Would I have kicked a field goal to go up 2 scores? 100%. That's what I would have done. But I'm not the head coach. That's the head coach. And my hindsight is 2020. I didn't actually have to make that decision in the moment. They did. Was it the right decision? Was it not the right decision? That's what we're going to be taking a look at next. A couple of coaching decisions, not play calling stuff, not stuff like that, just decisions that were a little bit questionable in this one. Could they end up biting the Saints in the tuchus later on down the road if they continue? I think so. So something to watch out for. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you bet the money line for the New Orleans Saints, and you walked away a pretty happy winner over on FanDuel. But if you haven't used FanDuel before, maybe this game against the Minnesota Vikings is a good opportunity for you. If you're really confident about the New Orleans Saints, maybe if you're really confident about the Minnesota Vikings, whatever, I won't judge. If you think that one of these teams is going to win the money line and you've never used FanDuel before, here's your opportunity. Because right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets by winning any $5 bet on a money line, right? On a game. So that basically gives you 30-1 odds no matter what. And assuming you put down that $5 and you win, not only will you get your winnings from winning the money line and getting it right, but then you get that $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. How cool is that? So go and check them out today, because if you've been waiting to check out FanDuel, this is absolutely the deal to get in on with those bonus bets. Then you can go back, you do spreads, you can do more money lines, you can do player props, over-unders, whatever. All on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use as well. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today as the NFL season continues to roll along over at FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Let's get it. Who Dat Nation, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with the things that concern us from the New Orleans Saints win versus Chicago. Now, listen, I'm not going to go into a bunch of stuff that's going to make you feel bad about this win or anything like that. It's just like, look, even in wins, you want to go through and still make improvements. So we're going to look at some of the things that concerned us, which are the things that you can then make improvements on. Appreciate all you everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. We're going to get into the slow start for the offense, the slow start for the defense. But I want to lead off with some of the coaching decisions in this game. Accepting the penalty on what would have been a 4th and 2, pushing them back on a 3rd and 12 in a game where your defense is just giving up the flats, giving up the middle of the field to get started, giving up the run opportunities for this young quarterback, all of that. To me, just knowing the way that the defense had been playing up to that point, taking the penalty was a bad call. Give them the opportunity to go out there and kick a field goal, as opposed to what eventually ended up happening, which was that they converted the 3rd and 12 on a quarterback scramble, which is something they had given up several times leading into that moment. And then a touchdown, another touchdown to Cole Kmet in the end zone. Now, hindsight's 2020. I have the benefit of being able to look back and not making the decision in the moment. I get that. But this is something that 4-point swing effectively could have cost you something. And you might say, well, what if they would have gone for it on 4th and 2? Okay, maybe they go for it on 4th and 2. Maybe it's a 7-point swing in your favor, because instead of giving up the touchdown, you make the stop on 4th and 2, because the run would have been different, right? You know that they're probably going up the middle. You know that that's about to be, that's what they're going to do. They're going to run for 2 yards, as opposed to the drop back and then scramble situation that you saw there. And then at worst, you give up a touchdown on 4th and 2. Or you give up the first down and then but at least you make them earn it, right? No easy buckets, I think, is the idea here. And so giving them another chance at 3rd down, where they could have picked up 10 yards, been back at 4th and 2, and then had to make the same decision again. Not great. Not great. Probably something that should be looked at. The other coaching decision that I think is interesting is still that 4th and 1, right? I actually don't blame the Saints for trying the QB sneak. I get the idea of the QB sneak when you get the opportunity to run up and quick snap it, which was the intent. That is what New Orleans wanted to do, but the officials didn't let them do that. They held, they stood over, held the ball, did not allow for them to go up there and quick snap before the defense gets set. They quick snap before the defense gets set, boom, they're in. But the offensive line, I don't blame Dennis Allen for trusting that the O-line was going to get them that half yard. Like, they have to win that. So just as much as maybe the coaching decision is the question, you got to question the O-line too for not being able to get that half yard. And we've seen across the NFL, tush, push, all these other things. And again, you're not using Taysom Hill under center to go for a sneak. He has very little experience operating under center. You're not going to put him back in the shotgun and have him do it, because generally when you're trying to get a half yard, you don't want to go backwards to go forwards. That's one of the reasons why you don't turn around and hand it off too. So I get all that, but I think you're better off asking the question about the O-line just as much as you're better off asking the question about the coaching decision. The other thing that's concerning is the slow start for the offense. We still haven't seen an opening drive touchdown for this team. Not that opening drive touchdowns equal wins, but there is something to the jolt that gives you. And I think that the Saints' inability to score on an opening drive for the game, but also inability to score on an opening drive for the game, but also an inability to score in the opening drive of the second half, where you've kind of got scripted plays. Like, if your scripted plays aren't working, then something's off, right? And we've seen this for 2 years now. So like, the scripted plays just aren't working. So what's the deal? Like, why isn't the scripted play that you prepared, why isn't that working? But then the, in the game flow stuff is working. So you'd like to see them get a little bit better at executing early on in games. Get involved, especially if the defense is going to be sluggish to start. And that perhaps is maybe one of the biggest concerns right now, is a slow start for the defense. It's great. It's great that the Saints have turned things around in the second half in each of these past, oftentimes, right? Oh, they're a second half team, blah, blah. But man, you can't leave the door open like that, right? So being able to come in and establish yourself early, which is what we saw this New Orleans Saints defense doing early on in the season, is a must. the Saints can get these other little things that are concerning, fast starts, some of those coaching decisions, faster starts over on defense, then all of a sudden this team doesn't need 5 turnovers to win by 7 points. They can get 2 turnovers and win by 10, 15, or 10, 20. What am I saying? 10, 14. That's what I was looking for. Points instead. So that's what I think what you want to see from this New Orleans Saints team. It's one of the reasons why I keep saying they haven't turned the corner yet. But man, they're turning it. They're turning it, and they're getting close. A couple of injury update things for you to know as they move forward. Isaiah Foskey, very likely to miss at least like 3 to 4 games or something like that, 3 or 4 weeks. And that was reported by, I believe it was Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN. Nick Underhill over at New Orleans Football mentioning also an ankle issue for Kendre Miller. So you got 2 rookies that could be missing some time here. We don't know the severity of Kendre Miller's injury yet. We'll see that here soon. But hopefully neither are, significant and that both will be back soon. But the injury is starting to pile up for Kendre Miller. I don't know if it's going to happen for him his rookie season. You know what I mean? This is something where you hope he gets healthier over the course of the offseason, and let's see what he's got his second year. But that's a weird thing. The Vikings are expected, at least right now, to start with Josh Dobbs as their first string, their first team quarterback over the course of the week. Jaron Hall, the rookie, who started the game last week or yesterday, concussion, very unlikely that he's going to be playing this weekend with the concussion. Or with the concussion so close. So expect to see Joshua Dobbs. As far as I'm hearing, Justin Jefferson, unlikely to play in this game against the New Orleans Saints, which is helpful, though that doesn't mean that he won't play, but it is unlikely at this point. Meanwhile, running back Cam Akers out for the year with his own injury as well. Tough break, another tough break for Cam Akers, it stinks. So expect to see a lot of Alexander Mattison for the Minnesota Vikings. We'll get more into the Minnesota Vikings throughout the week. Luke Braun coming on crossover Thursday. Wednesday, we'll take a look at him. Friday, we'll get to the game plan on how to beat him. But tomorrow morning, we'll have another episode up for you. Take a look at some kind of film breakdown stuff, right? I'll give you my film notes on what I think happened with the Saints. We'll kind of do a little bit of a Tell the Truth Tuesday kind of a thing about like the honest place that the New Orleans Saints are. So make sure you come back for that as well. I appreciate you as always. Make Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. And a big thank you to all you everydayers out there. I appreciate you so much making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the families are. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.